In today's video, we are going to be talking about 4 of Chelsea's internal solutions from the academy that they could use at the end of this season, going into next season. And we're going to discuss why some of them maybe won't get the minutes they deserve, why some of them should get a few extra minutes. And basically, this is a video that I've had planned out for a few weeks now, and so many things started happening with the Asugo news, with the Quenda news, that I just sort of had to put this one off. So we're going to get this one done, get it out today, and then the next video after this will be the Chelsea versus Tottenham preview. So watch out for that one. But today's video, we're going to be speaking about Tyreek George, Shimka, Keanu Dyer, and Josh Acheampong. So let's start with Tyreek George, because I think he's the one that most people will be familiar with, the one that we've seen the most of in the fray. And predominantly, he does like to play off this left side. Now, we have seen him over on this right-hand side probably quite a bit more in these opening sort of minutes for him in the first team under Enzo Maresca. And we've also seen him as a striker, and I think he's actually done a good job there when he's sort of filled in, worked hard through the middle, made those runs in behind to stretch the defence. And we've seen him get a few assists from this right-hand side as well. So why do I want to see him on the left more often? Now, largely this comes from the idea that Sancho, we know he's now playing for his spot, apparently, like he's playing for his future at the club. Neto, we don't know if Madueke is even going to be back fully fit yet. We don't know about Jackson either, so Neto is probably going to have to fill in elsewhere. It will probably only be once Madueke is 100% back and Jackson's 100% back that we maybe see Neto filling in on that left-hand side and sort of making that front three there. But until then, with Sancho playing for his spot, not in the best form, and Nkunku, who has been filling in over here and just hasn't been getting the job done, I'd really like to see Tyreek George given those minutes, because let's speak about why from this side of the pitch. His ability, and we saw it with Cucurella in one of the games not too long ago when George came over to the left-hand side for about 10 minutes. I think it was against Copenhagen. And Cucurella and George had a really good sort of synergy of Cucurella was making these runs outside so that allowed George to make these runs inside. George, when he gets into these positions, on his strong right foot, he has that ability to hit shots and curl shots, and even with those clip sort of in-swingers towards the back post. And I think that's something that we don't get enough of in terms of volume, because Sancho doesn't shoot often enough. He often looks to try and find those like clever little 1-2 passes into the box and find box entries through that sort of manipulation. But George is a lot more direct in that sense. His ball striking is excellent. And like I say, Cucurella makes those runs to help support George. But then vice versa, if George sort of holds the width and he wants to beat his man 1v1 on the outside, Cucurella was making these runs inside, which again we know that he can do. Or Enzo, on the other hand, playing in that left-hand sort of like half space. We know that this works. We've seen it work. And I think Cucurella and George can really strike up a connection. And I saw that in just 10 minutes against Copenhagen, because I think both of them have the capacity to play in both channels. And I think that's really, really important. And I think it gives Chelsea a much better dynamic on that left-hand side, rather than Nkunku, who always wants to come inside, which means Cucurella is always shoved outside. And what often happens is the ball gets rotated into Cucurella and he ends up just shuffling it back because he's not got that confidence to go on the outside. Whereas if he's arriving late after George is coming in from here, then he can make a run and he's not having to sort of receive the ball stagnant, stood still. He's receiving the ball on the go. And then he can either deliver. I don't know why I've drew an arrow when this is an arrow, but he can either deliver or he can sort of set it back. Or if sometimes he will sort of obviously go back and we'll play and we'll start to shuffle it around to the other side of the box. But I do really like that dynamic between Cucurella and Tyreek George. So that's why I want to see more of him. For argument's sake, let's just do that. Put Sancho back in there so that we can discuss. Let's do Shimka and Dyer, because I think they're the easier ones to go for before we have a little bit more of an in-depth chat about Acheampong, because again, we've seen a bit more of him. Start with Dyer. I really like Dyer. I think he's so good. My biggest worry is he is probably the one that he's going to be looking, because he's good enough to be playing this level of football. Every time I watch him for Chelsea's under 21s, but also Chelsea's under 19s or 18s, sorry. And also England under 19s in the first game. To be fair, he wasn't too involved in that first game on the ball. But he reminds me so much of Angel Gomez because of his ability. He's snappy in when he wins duels in around here. He's obviously very small. I think he's about 5'5", 5'6". But he's snappy when in these duels, and he will sort of cover ground in that way. but it's just his manipulation on the ball to play against play. If players are pressing and they're pressing sort of in this direction, his ability to shift the ball to this side, so he goes that way to then shift it through their momentum, because then whilst all players are shifting that direction, he manages to find against their movement. And it's something that Dyer does really, really well. It's something Angel Gomez, I relate that to him really, really strong. And players that can do that in the pivot, especially in the Premier League, where pressing can become so intense based on triggers, sort of when that trigger is hit and loads of players go to sort of press one side of the pitch. If you can then play against that momentum in one way or another, whether that's carries, whether that's passing, whether that's long switches of play, that's always an effective route to sort of beat that press and find those spaces. So Dyer's really effective for that. Of course, much like Billy Gilmour when he was coming through, height can play a factor as to why the Premier League, it's like Maresca might not think he's ready to sort of deal with the physicality. Like I say, I do think he's snappy in those duels. So I don't think he'd get completely overrun. I still think he'd make quite a few sort of important tackles here and there and interceptions and so. But I do understand it, and I wouldn't be surprised if he, one, gets a loan next year, or two, really worryingly, would be if a team came in for him, because I do think he's ready to sort of take the step up. So he's one to keep an eye on, because I really, really, really rate Keanu Dyer. Every time I watch him play, just unbelievable. Really, really good. Shimka, again, we've seen glimpses of him. The way that I describe him is, this is really high praise, so don't get on the wrong end of this. For me, he's like your big man build. So again, not really like Osimhen, but let's just say Osimhen for that build in terms of how he sort of bullies players off the ball, uses his body to sort of initiate contact when he's in and around the box, sort of bump his shoulder into a player before then sort of making that little off-ball movement. He can head the ball really well. We've seen his technique's really good. He's not the tallest yet, but he's still growing. And again, he's quite bulky in his frame. But one that I don't see a lot of people say as often, the way he shifts the ball in and around the box, it reminds me so much of Sergio Aguero. The way he sort of like buys himself half a yard to open up that shooting space, that little extra half a second, half a yard to get that shot off. For me, that's Shimaheka's best quality. And I think he's absolutely excellent at it. And I do think that given time, and again, I think he's another one. I think he's ready to take that jump. I would love him to go on loan next year. I know he's young and it's not doing him any harm playing in the under 21s and sort of getting that exposure and coming playing for the England under 19s. He was good. He scored a goal for them. And that was a really nice goal as well, with some nice sort of tight ball manipulation in this area before putting it in the back of the net. Again, really, really like him. Whether he makes it fully at Chelsea is going to be down to a lot of different things, because I think he's got the talent easily. But of course, we're probably going to sign a big striker this summer. We don't know about Nicholas Jackson, still very, very young. So let's see what happens. But my hope is that he can maybe get a loan in the next 1 to 2 years and really progress, because I think he's ready for senior football. I think he's really, really good profile to have in the team. Josh Acheampong, really important, because this guy, wow. Captained England under 19s over the international break, was playing as a left centre back. Bear in mind, if you was to say what is Josh Acheampong's profile, you'd say a right back / right centre back hybrid. That's what you'd go for. Same as like Ishe Samuel Smith is another one we could have spoke about today, but I've decided to leave him out so that it's not too long of a video. Is similar to Acheampong, but on the other side is that left back / left centre back hybrid. So Acheampong, 6'3", like marauding athleticism and just real composure on the ball. But his main sort of like aspects that you've got is, I think he can offer exactly what you get from Fofana in terms of aggression into coming into these areas to win the ball, recovery pace to defend that channel when it comes back, and also enough composure on the ball. But even more so, and why I say that he can sort of mirror the Fofana traits. If you used to speak about the backline that we've got, one thing Fofana offers that not many others do is that ability to carry it out from the back. And when you're being pressed man for man, which is something that, of course, you're kind of wanting to happen against these sort of systems. When you're setting up in this way, you kind of want teams to go man to man against you. Once teams jump up and come man to man, say they're pressing with 3 from the front, 2 from the middle, and they've dropped one of their centre-backs into here alongside the DM, for example. The way to then bust open that man-to-man press is something Fofana does really well, is he gets the ball and he just drives on the outside of the block, because this guy is now out the game, which means if these guys are breaking forward, they have to stay. Eventually, this player is going to have to put pressure, or the player out here is going to have to put pressure. So there's a fullback there on Fofana. And that is when free man or free man. So bringing the ball forward yourself in those carrier moments really, really obviously breaks open a man-to-man press and can help you to find that free man. What's Joshua Acheampong brilliant at? Exactly that. He did exactly that for England's under-19s and got an assist. I think it was for the first goal, I think, against Wales. Just drove through the middle of the pitch. And he'd done it earlier in the game and not got an assist for it. But superb in that sense. And he brings that to the table. Like I say, with the athleticism, something to keep an eye on with Acheampong. I do think if Chelsea sign someone like Mark Guehi, I think with Colwill, Fofana, Guehi, I think Acheampong stays if Guehi's the signing next season. I don't think he goes out on loan. I think he stays, and I think he plays quite a big part. Because if Guehi's going to be playing, I would expect Acheampong to sort of be quite heavily featured alongside Guehi, whether he's playing at right back and inverting into the right centre back role, so that you can have Guehi, Cole, and Acheampong. Just because it gives you that little bit more physicality in that back line. Because with Cole and Guehi, your main sort of criticism, if they was a pairing, for example, would be probably not physically imposing enough. They both win fairly good amounts of aerial duels, but I think it's the way in which they do so. I think when we analyse aerial duels, I think there's almost two ways of analysing them. There's the percentages and like how good you are actually sort of arriving at the right time to sort of clear the ball, and that's a skill in itself. Something Thiago Silva is brilliant at. Something I would consider Guehi to be brilliant at. But I think you always need somebody who's a bit more of a loose cannon, might not win as many, but they put the pressure on when they go to win that ball. Because even if they miss the ball and it goes over the top of them, that's where your cover players can just sweep up. And I think that's why Fofana is so important. And I think that's something Acheampong can do. Even though he is a little bit more of a composed character, he's got the athleticism to sort of jump up into those midfield moments, win the ball aggressively, and use that athleticism to his advantage. So that's the four players that I would really like to see more of. Let me know any questions you have on them for. Drop any other players, like I said, Samuel Smith is another one that I could speak about easily. If you want to see another one of these where I speak about some more, maybe the lone players coming back, like Andre Santos, Esteval, Paez maybe, let me know if you want a video like that. And like I said, the next video will be the Chelsea versus Tottenham preview. So smash a like on this video to let me know that you want to see that video. Drop a comment, subscribe if you haven't already. I appreciate all the support lately on the videos because we're just smashing it right now with the support. It's higher than ever, and I can't thank you enough for that. So please do drop a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I will see you guys in the next one.